Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of this Soundness podcast. So Socrates Son has finally decided to respond to my video, and he responded to my video of my 35-minute video with a 4-hour long response.
4 hours.
You know, sometimes you don't even need to look at your response to know that it's a bunch of bullshit, and that's exactly what happened. You don't need, I don't care how good you think you are, but if you have to make a 4-hour long video in response to a 35-minute video, you have already lost the debate.
This is now gonna be in the public sphere for people to ridicule you and to remind you of your incompetence.
Either way, so he made 4 videos responding to me, which was a huge waste of time because a lot of it was just him ranting about other Muslim apologetics and wasting my time. And those places where he did kind of respond to my argument, his arguments were so bad, and I'm gonna show it to you in this video, that I scratched all my hairs out. That's why I have short hair now.
Why they do this to me, Timmy?
Anyway, so yeah, also he used a lot of red herring to try to distract me from the main topic. Unfortunately, I responded to some of it which I shouldn't have, but that was a mistake on my part. So in this video, there'll be no more red herrings, only the main topic of the video, and that's it. I will also not be responding to anything he said regarding Hamza Zorses and Sabur Ahmed, because that's a waste of my time, because that has nothing to do with my video. And so yeah, I'll only be responding to things that has to do with my video and my arguments. However, since I'm keeping this professional, let's get our definitions out of the way. The reason I want to do this is because throughout his video, I noticed he kept changing the definition of words such as science, logic, etc., to the point where it became extremely confusing and completely redundant. And he changed the meaning of the word science however it suits him, which is ridiculous. Which is why, in the beginning of this video, I'm going to make my definitions very, very clear. So yeah, when I say the word logic throughout this video, I mean sound philosophical argument. So in philosophy, there are 2 types of argument: valid argument, and then there's the sound argument. Valid arguments are when you have arguments that logically follows. Sound arguments are arguments that both logically follows and has to have true premises. So if it has true premises and it logically follows, then it's impossible for the argument to be wrong. This is what I mean when I say logic. It's almost very similar to math in a way. And I have to explain this because, like I said, my opponent is pretty much an illiterate fool on this matters.
Because you're a fool, with all due respect, and you're ignorant of these things. So I'm going to speak, and you're not going to understand.
So, yeah. Now, when I use the word science, I mean the Royal Institution's definition of the word scientific theory, which basically means that a theory that explains reality based on logic, then brings evidence to prove that theory, that makes accurate predictions, which is again tested and verified. However, I will add to this that this theory is then later published in scientific journal. That journal is then later peer reviewed by other scientists. This is what I mean by scientific theory, although the later part is not that important. However, still, this is the whole thing, and this is what I mean when I say scientific theory. Also, the word logical fallacy means when the argument don't logically follow, or it is based on a false premise, then it automatically doesn't follow. Either way, now that we have all our definitions out of the way, let's take a look at what he has to say in response to my video, shall we? So one thing you'll notice in his video is that he constantly misrepresented my position. He, as usual, like Armin Nawawi, and his strawmanning got so bad at one point that he literally contradicting himself while he's strawmanning me. Here, check this out.
Did they say, the scientific theory is proven fact in an absolute sense. Did they say that? No, they didn't. So you addressed a strawman.
What? What? Did I ever say that Royal Institution said that science is an absolute fact? No, I have never said this. So did you guys notice that? In the beginning, he accused me of misrepresenting the Royal Institution. He accused me of thinking that I believe that Royal Institution said science is an absolute fact. However, then when I clarified that no, I have never said this, nor is that my position, he immediately changes the argument and says, so you didn't even address the main point. Problematic.
So, you named a video, Royal Institution Exposed. You named a video, Royal Institution Exposed. Now you admit that you didn't even address, yet alone refute, the exclusive essence and point of this video.
So wait a minute. So he does think that Royal Institution actually said that science is an absolute fact, because otherwise why would he correct me? But then why did he accuse me of misrepresenting them? So which one is it? Like, did Royal Institution say science is an absolute fact or not? Again, this is a complete contradiction. So which one is it? Do you think that I said that Royal Institution think that science is an absolute fact, or do I not think that Royal Institution think that science is an absolute fact? However, what's funny is that later on, when he again thinks that I did say that, he again repeats the same thing. He goes back to his previous position and says that no, I actually do think that that Royal Institution thinks that science is an absolute fact. Not true. There actually have been many scientific theories which had.
So, you literally did exactly that. You did a strawman. You didn't. You just said you saw the video of the Royal Institution and you literally said, this is not true.
So which one is it, Socrates? Do I think that Royal Institution thinks that science is an absolute fact, or do I think that Royal Institution doesn't think science is an absolute fact and I didn't respond to the argument? As a matter of fact, he later on repeats the same thing, but changes his kind of narrative. Later on, he then says that in my video, I only showed that the science is not absolutely true. When Royal Institution's video or main point was that the definition used by the scientific community differs from everyday use of the word theory.
So, the video he names Royal Institution Exposed was in fact a strawman. The exclusive point of Royal Institution was to communicate how scientific theories differ from the everyday use of the word theory. And he responded how scientific theories are not absolutely true.
However, that's not true. Again, he himself quotes me saying that Royal Institution's position is that scientific theories are somehow higher than other theories, other logical theories.
Okay, so Royal Institution is saying that scientific theories are not the same as theories, in everyday sense of the word. Okay, that's the position. Why did I object to this? I objected to this because that's not true. In everyday lives, we use many different types of theories that is based on logic, that is also true, that is also reliable. For example, I'll give you an example.
So again, which one is it? Am I proving that science is not an absolute fact or not? Did I respond to Royal Institution main argument or not? Again, like, this guy cannot stay consistent throughout the video. Like, he constantly contradicts himself. Regardless, you know what, let me put this in a logical form. Premise 1. According to Socrates Son, I believe the Royal Institution thinks that science is an absolute fact. Therefore, I misrepresented them. Premise 2. Also, according to Socrates Son, I don't believe that Royal Institution thinks that science is an absolute fact, which means I didn't address their main point. Premise 3. Also, according to Socrates Son, I do believe that Royal Institution thinks that science is an absolute fact, therefore I did misrepresent them. Conclusion. Therefore, Socrates Son is a self-contradicting person, is a self-contradicting fool, and he really shouldn't be taken seriously. Now, to the second point, He said that I named my video Royal Institution Exposed, therefore I must think that they think that science is an absolute fact. However, again, he's committing the non-sequitur fallacy. His argument doesn't follow. Just because my video is titled Royal Institution Exposed doesn't mean that I think that Royal Institution believes that science is an absolute fact. I name a lot of my videos Exposed, which means that I'm exposing their weak argument. That's all. It doesn't mean what he thinks it means. Also, when I say that's not true, I was responding to Royal Institution's claim that scientific theories are somehow more reliable than other theories. This does not prove that I think that somehow Royal Institution thinks science is an absolute fact. Again, I have never said this. Again, he lied and slandered me. Also, let this be a lesson to you all. If your opponent says that you're misrepresenting them, then simply say, okay, no problem, fine, I misunderstood what you said. What is your actual position? Your response shouldn't be, no, you're wrong, because I know better than you about your position, which makes no sense. Like, literally, I'm saying that this is not my position, and he constantly saying, no, this is a position, this is a position, even though I've never said this in the video. He showed me no evidence that I've said this position or that's my position, and he keeps hammering this down as if like he made some kind of amazing argument. Like, dude, I already said that this is not my position. Instead of attacking my actual position, he's again wasting everyone's time. And he made a complete fool out of himself because he constantly contradicted himself while he's misrepresenting me. Regardless, let's continue. That in the past and even now, people have used these type of scientific theories to justify hate crime against people.
And yet, that is a misrepresentation of your true motives. Your true motives is to protect Islam.
Oh my God, no! He has figured out my secret evil plan! I'm only doing this to protect Islam. Oh no! Now, all of a sudden, Socrates Son has now become a psychic, like Professor X, or something like that. So he can now apparently read the minds of Muslims and know exactly what they want. Regardless, let's continue.
Scientific theories are the best representation of truth. Logic is limited to the human ability to reason.
Here he contradicted himself again. So at first he says that science is the most reliable way to the truth. Then he says but logic is limited due to human capability to reason. Then he says logic is part of science.
Science, although it also needs basic logic.
However, if it's part of science, then how is science the most reliable way to the truth? Here, let me put this argument in a logical form. Premise 1. According to Socrates Son, when scientists use logic in the scientific method, it is the most reliable way to the truth. Premise 2. Also according to Socrates Son, when philosophers or historians use logic in history or philosophy, then it's not the most reliable way to the truth. Premise 3. This is a contradiction. Logic cannot both be reliable and not reliable at the same time. Conclusion. Therefore, again, Socrates Son proves to be a self-contradicting fool who should not be taken seriously, which again proves my statement that he is suffering from the Dunning-Kruger affair. Regardless, let's continue.
Will you trust to go into a plane that was made by a plane mechanic or it was made by Plato? Plane mechanic, obviously. But wait a moment. The plane mechanic has better logic than Plato. Why is that? Why you will trust the plane mechanic and not Plato? Because the scientific method overstates logic.
First of all, it's called mechanic, not mechanic, okay? Learn how to speak English first. Secondly, he is using the false analogy fallacy. In short, he is using an analogy that does not represent his argument. For example, the whole plane mechanic thing. First of all, the plane mechanic is not a scientist. He's simply a guy doing a job who has expertise in making or fixing airplanes. Nor does it have anything to do with scientific theories. Again, when I say scientific theories, I mean something that is logical, based on evidence, and something that can make predictions, and something that can be experimented and tested. A mechanic is simply a guy with a skill. This has nothing to do with any scientific theory. Then he uses Plato as an example of people using logic. This again fails because Plato making an airplane has nothing to do with logic, because him making an airplane is not logical in the first place. As a matter of fact, this is an example of a logical fallacy known as appeal to false authority. Plato is not an authority when it comes to making airplanes, so it's not logical for him to make airplanes in the first place. which is why this is a complete non sequitur. It does not establish his argument. Let me put this argument in logical form. Premise 1. Socrates' son uses mechanic and philosopher doing something as an example of reliability of science versus logic. Premise 2. When we look closely, neither of the examples of the mechanic or philosopher doing something has anything to do with either science or logic. Therefore, Socrates' son's example fails. Now you may say, how about his overall point? Does science make logic better? No, because logic can be still bad or fallacious whether it's part of science or not. For example, recently scientists has begun to argue that the theory of general relativity might actually be wrong. They say that based on evidence from dark matter.
Bright areas are where dark matter is most concentrated, and it's here that galaxies form. But the map is not what astronomers expected. The matter should be slightly more clumped together. Instead, it's smoother than predicted by Einstein's theory of general relativity, which helps determine how the matter should have spread out after the Big Bang.
If the structures in this map are smoother than we expect them to be, which is what the results seem to hint at, it means that Einstein's theory is wrong.
So here we see that an example of the great Einstein himself, who might have made a bad argument because he could simply possibly misunderstood the evidence. If this is true, then this would show that just because logic is backed by science doesn't mean that it's more reliable, because at the end of the day it's still wrong. Then we have the example of Aristotle, who argued that Earth is round simply based on logic and evidence. He, in his book On the Heavens, wrote, again, our observation of the stars make it evident not only that the Earth is circular, but also that it is a circle of no great size. For quite a small change of position to south or north causes a manifest alternation of the horizon. In other words, you see a different set of stars in the night sky depending on where you are. The sky over northern hemisphere is not the same as the sky over southern hemisphere. If the Earth was flat, then at any given time we would all see the same stars at the same time, which we don't. So as you can see here, Aristotle did not use any science whatsoever, and yet he was still right. So no, just because logic is backed by science doesn't mean that it's somehow better. It's somehow better than regular logic. Either way, let's continue.
There are many reasons why that happens, but that's another discussion. Secondly, no, you didn't do what you claim.
Scientific theories are actually better than other theories, such as political theory or moral theory or other technological theories, right? That is based on logic. I'm saying, no, that's not the case.
Did you ever compare science to logic? Which one deals with truth more efficiently? No, you didn't. You just compared science to absolute truth. Exactly the stupidity Hamza Georges does.
Unless you watched my video Eyes and Ears Closed, yes, I did show that scientific theories are not any better than other logical theories. Royal Institution's argument was that scientific theories are better than other theories because of XYZ reason. So if I can show that XYZ reason does not make a difference and the theory can still be wrong, then I have successfully debunked this claim. That's exactly what I did. Regardless, let's continue.
Okay, so Royal Institution is saying that scientific theories are not the same as theories, in everyday sense of the word. Okay, that's the position. Why did I object to this? I objected to this because that's not true. In everyday lives, we use many different types of theories that is based on logic, that is also true, that is also reliable. For example, I'll give you an example. Let's say that I was born in Dhaka, right? Dhaka is a part of Bangladesh. Therefore, I was born in Bangladesh. Now, in this argument, I did not use any scientific theories at all, any math or anything like that, right? I use simple logic. That's it. There's no science, no math, nothing. And yet I came to a true conclusion. That's my point.
You are a 20-year-old kid. 10 years ago, when atheists used to debate creationists, creationists like Eric Hovind, can't remember the names now. Let me show you. So when atheists were debating Ken Ham, this guy, I cannot remember his name, Ray Comfort, Kent Hovind, Eric Hovind, his son, I think. They used to say, why you say evolution is proven? It's just a theory. Evolution is the theory of evolution. So it's just a theory. Why you say it's proven? Okay, this is what they used to say. So this is the pretext. This is the history. Okay. People who knew something about science, then they explain. No, scientific theory is not like the plain use of the word theory in everyday life. Okay, and that was the whole point of the video you responded. That was the whole point. You try to defend the most crazy creationists. No, they were right. Okay, you just became a monkey. You just became a monkey, my friend. So now look what you say after you made a complete fool of yourself to try to defend the most low case creationist who thinks the earth is 6,000 years old. Okay, and they said the most moronic, idiotic stuff ever, but you try to defend them.
This is a strawman argument. I have never defended any young earth creationist, nor is that my position. I'm saying that any theory based on sound argument are reliable by default. If it's not based on a sound argument, then by default it's not reliable. Again, I have never said scientific theories are the same as other theories like conspiracy theories that are based on bad argument. Obviously, these types of theories are not reliable due to bad argumentation. So again, he strawman me. I have never said this. Neither am I defending the position of young earth creationist or support them. Regardless, let's continue.
Fallacy, logical fallacy, as an argument against scientific theories. That's the power of a scientific theory, not its weakness. A scientific theory is meant to eliminate these errors. In other words, you said that science is not absolutely reliable because scientists might do logical errors. But that is exactly the point of science, to eliminate human limitations. You pretended the power of science is actually its weakness.
So let me get this straight. When philosophy makes a mistake, then it's less reliable than science. However, if science makes a mistake, then it's not less reliable? No. When science makes a mistake, well, that's the power of science, apparently. Again, how is this even consistent? Again, let me put this argument in a logical form. Premise 1. According to Socrates Son, when people use logic and make mistake, then it's less reliable. Premise 2. Also according to Socrates Son, when scientists use science and make mistake, then it's not less reliable. Premise 3. This is a contradiction. Either making a mistake makes something less reliable or not. You cannot say that when it comes to other things, mistakes makes it less reliable, then at the same time say when it comes to science, mistake does not make it less reliable. Conclusion. Therefore, Socrates Son fails again because he is being inconsistent. When it comes to science, he is using different criteria that is not justified and is contradicting himself. He once again proved himself to be a self-contradicting fool suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect. Regardless, let's continue.
First of all, that is bad science. So, essentially you said, bad science is an argument against science. Or bad logic is an argument against science. But then you highlighted the value of logic. So, bad logic is an argument against science, but bad logic is not an argument against logic. I wouldn't have called you an idiot, but you called me an idiot.
By the way, my argument of James Hutton's theory is not an example of bad science. James Hutton used the scientific method as described by the Royal Institution. This is not an example of bad science but science itself. Also, there is no such thing as a bad logic. Again, when I say logic, I mean sound philosophical arguments. It's impossible for a sound argument to be bad. If my definition of logic included valid arguments that may or may not be sound, then you could say bad logic. Because a valid argument which is not sound could be called bad logic. However, my definition of logic does not include valid arguments, but sound arguments, so there is no bad logic. Either the argument is sound or not. There is no bad or in between arguments.
Again, I'm not saying logic is better than science. I'm saying that when it comes to reliability, they are both the same. Here, let me put this argument in a logical form. Premise 1. According to Socrates Son, logic is limited due to human capacity. Premise 2. Also according to Socrates Son, logic is part of science. Premise 3. If logic is part of science and logic is limited, then science is also limited. Conclusion. Therefore, according to Socrates Son's own logic, science is not more reliable than logic because in the end of the day, they are both limited by human logic. What's interesting is that without realizing, Socrates Son actually made my point for me. Thanks for that, by the way. Now, in this portion of the video, he tried to divorce logic from science. However, his attempt fails completely because scientific method, even without logic, still makes mistake, even when it comes to collecting data. Here, recently I saw a discussion of Neil deGrasse Tyson with Joe Rogan. Here he describes an incident where scientists made a mistake when collecting data that led to them coming up with a false theory. Here, take a look.
Neptune. So Neptune,
Gravity.
we're looking at Neptune's orbit, and it's not following Newton's laws. And this is odd. Well, we've been down that road before. Uranus didn't follow Newton's laws. We proposed another planet and we found it. So Neptune's not following all the laws of gravity that from all the other planets in the sun. There must be another planet out there, a planet X. Let's look for it. So we're out here at Neptune, and so I said, maybe there's a planet X. Everybody started looking. Including Percival Lowell, all right, back in the 1920s. And he says, I want to find planet X because something's perturbing Neptune. So he sets out looking for it, and he doesn't find it. Then he hires Clyde Tombaugh, and he dies, so he doesn't see the results of this. Clyde Tombaugh, he said, I can't find it either. I will just systematically search everywhere. Because if you think something's affecting you gravitationally, you ought to have some idea where it is to be tugging on you in that way. All right, that's not some kind of weird, it's like you're moving differently. Where must the thing be to tug on you so that you're moving in that way? Right. No one could find such a planet X. So Clyde Tombaugh said, it's got to be out there somewhere. I will systematically image the entire sky, all right? And you got to do it on multiple nights because if something's moving, you'd see it change from one picture to the next. He does this, discovers Pluto. Was Pluto where planet X was supposed to have been? No. Was Pluto the mass that planet X should have been? Everyone assumed it was. But over the decades, the mass of Pluto got lower and lower and lower as our estimates got more and more accurate. And then we found out that Pluto is 1/5 the mass of our moon. Anyhow, there's still the matter of Neptune's orbit. Pluto did not have enough mass to make those changes. So the search for planet X continued. So what happens? All right. 1993. A colleague of mine named Miles Standish, okay? He's probably related to the Miles Standish on the Mayflower. He is an astrophysicist, looked at all of the data people were using to say Neptune's orbit was crooked. Looked at all the data. Then he found out that at one particular observatory, was it the gearbox or the timing mechanism, had just been cleaned or swapped out, or there was some. Because in the observing log, you write down everything because you just don't know. Okay, was there a glitch in the current? Was there a bird fly over? You make notes of everything. One of the observatories whose data was being grafted together with the other observatories had this sort of gearbox. I don't remember if it was a gearbox. There was some mechanical adjustment that was made. He said, I wonder if that had an effect on the positioning of this telescope. He removed those data from his analysis and fitted data to all the other telescopes that he had for the positions of Uranus, of Neptune. When he did that, planet X evaporated in that instant. In that instant. There was no planet X. The lesson there, the lesson there is you have information that you think is correct from your sensors. This was an observatory, a fine observatory. And you're going to say, this observatory says Neptune is misbehaving. But then you learned there was something wrong with the data. You throw it out. So I'm trying to say this happens all the time in science.
So as you saw in the video, scientists thought that a planet named Planet X existed because that's what the math based on the data said. However, as it turns out, they collected the wrong data, and as a result, they came to the wrong conclusion. Then another scientist actually had to use his logic to fix the problem. So here we see that scientific mistakes sometimes have nothing to do with logic. Scientists sometimes make mistakes even when collecting data itself. As Neil deGrasse Tyson says, it happens all the time in science. Here, let me put this argument in a logical form. Premise 1. According to Socrates Son, science is more reliable than logic. Premise 2. We see that science made a mistake in collecting data when it comes to the theory of planet X. And this has nothing to do with logic. This was later corrected by logic. Conclusion. Therefore, science is not more reliable than logic because science can make mistakes even without logic, which proves Socrates Son's theory wrong. Now, inshallah, I'll make a series of videos where I highlight these kind of problems that scientists face. They oftentimes make absolute huge, hilarious blunders when it comes to collecting data. And not only that, they also make mistakes when it comes to coming up with theories as well. That's another issue. Then we have the problems of self-contradicting scientific theories, which is another problem, which is something I will discuss in a separate video, because those topics deserve their own videos. Either way, my point is that scientists make mistakes even without logic, because here, because science is so complicated and it covers a vast area, the chances of you making a mistake throughout the scientific process is way bigger than a normal logical theory. Like, for example, you can make a mistake when coming up with the theory. You can make a mistake when making a hypothesis. You can make a mistake when collecting data. You can make a mistake when testing that prediction of that data. You can even make a mistake and you definitely make a mistake when you're making predictions based on those theory. So there's so many room for mistake. When in logic, the only way you can make a mistake is if you make a bad argument. That's it. But it's very easy to fix. So here we see that scientific theories has more room for error, where logical theories doesn't have that many room for error. But the reason I say they're both reliable is because science usually deals with things that logical theories in many cases does not. So scientists oftentimes don't have a choice. But I'll discuss that more later. But regardless, let's continue.
So, and you did such a tragic mistake. Anyway, you are young. I won't call you an idiot. You are intelligent. But seriously, dude, come on. Let's go.
I'll give you an example. Let's say that I was born in Dhaka, right? Dhaka is a part of Bangladesh. Therefore, I was born in Bangladesh. In this argument, I did not use any scientific theories at all, any math or anything like that, right? I used simple logic. That's it. There's no science, no math, nothing. And yet I came to a true conclusion.
Yes, but logic can only work if you have the facts. So you say I was born in Dhaka. Okay. If we were to make that, to be sure about that, we will need to do some kind of investigation to see if you actually was born in Dhaka. For example, we will have to see some evidence. We have to go to the clinic to see your birth certificate. Okay, if we are to be sure that you were born in Dhaka. Okay, that is science. Science investigates the facts.
Here he is again committing the equivocation fallacy. So basically, when he is using the word science, he's changing the meaning of the definition. For example, before he used the word science to mean skill and knowledge of people when giving the example of the mechanic.
Will you trust to go into a plane that was made by a plane mechanic or it was made by Plato? Plane mechanic, obviously. But wait a moment. The plane mechanic has better logic than Plato.
Now, all of a sudden, science means evidence and investigation. So which one is it? Does science mean people's knowledge and skill, or does it mean investigation? He is again contradicting himself. Like I said, this is why I made my definition very, very clear. When I say science, I mean the definition used by Royal Institution. In other words, a theory that is based on logic, evidence, that can make predictions and even be tested. This is then published in a peer-reviewed journal and then peer-reviewed by other scientists to see if the theory is valid or not. This is what I mean when I say science. Me using a sound argument based on a simple evidence is not science. Okay, I didn't have a theory, and I didn't make any predictions, or neither did I do any kind of experiments based on those predictions, nor was it peer-reviewed by any scientist. I used simple evidence, such as testimony and other things, to make a sound argument. That's it. This is again not science. This is simple logic. Regardless, let's continue.
Logically consistent arguments are not true unless you relate them to reality. For example, you made a perfectly logically consistent argument. Is this argument true? Only if you actually was born in Dhaka. Get it now, my friend. Logically consistent arguments are not true unless they relate to reality. So what defines truth? Logic? No, reality defines truth. And how we investigate reality? With a methodical way? Science. That's why science is more reliable than logic. Get it now, my friend. You made the perfect example.
Stop embarrassing yourself. That is not your field, brother.
So at this point, I genuinely started laughing when I first saw this, because this guy is so uneducated that he has no clue about philosophy. He does not know the difference between a valid argument and a sound argument. And this guy thinks he's a philosopher. He has no clue. So here, let me show you guys a video clip from Duke University where they explain what a sound argument from a philosophical point of view actually is.
An argument is valid if it is impossible for all of the premises to be true, while its conclusion is false. For example, the following is a valid argument. Premise 1. All cats are purple. Premise 2. Everything that is purple is a person. Conclusion. Therefore, all cats are people. This argument is valid because it is impossible for the premises to be true while the conclusion is false. If all cats were people, and all purple things were people, then all cats would be people. Of course, not all cats are purple, and not all purple things are people. So even though this argument is valid, it's not really informative. It does not establish the truth of its conclusion, since the premises are obviously false. Since the goal of an argument is usually to show that some conclusion is true, we usually want arguments that are more than just valid. This is where the notion of soundness comes in. Soundness is a technical notion in philosophy. What philosophers mean by sound is a bit different than what people ordinarily mean when they say things like, "That was sound advice," or "She demonstrated sound judgment in making that decision." In philosophy, soundness, like validity, applies only to deductive arguments. In order to be sound, an argument must meet two requirements. First, the argument must be valid. All invalid arguments are unsound. Second, the premises of the argument must all be true. Any argument that has even a single false premise is unsound. To be sound, an argument must meet both requirements. Let's go back to the example with the purple cats. Is this argument sound? Let's check. The argument is valid, so it meets the first requirement, but it definitely does not meet the second requirement, since not all of its premises are true. In fact, both the premises are false. But not every unsound argument has false premises. Consider another example. Premise 1. All dead parrots are dead. Premise 2. Parrots are not frogs. Conclusion. Therefore, frogs exist. Both premises of this argument are true, so this argument satisfies the second requirement for being a sound argument. However, it doesn't satisfy the first requirement because the argument is invalid. The conclusion does not follow from the premises. So this is an unsound argument, even though all the premises are true. Note that the conclusion is also true, but that doesn't matter. It's still an unsound argument.
So as I said, when I talked about logic, I'm talking about sound philosophical argument. So if a logically consistent argument does not relate to reality, then it's not logical in the first place. In order for an argument to be sound, the premises must be true. And the premises can only be true if it relates to reality. You cannot have a logical argument that does not relate to reality. If it does not relate to reality, then it's not logical or sound in the first place. I mean, please try to get this through your thick, uneducated brain. Philosophically sound arguments cannot be false. And you just completely embarrassed yourself in this video. This is why I said that you are suffering from Dunning-Kruger effect. You don't even know the difference between a sound and a valid argument. And you're insulting other people who has PhDs in philosophy. You are what Brother Rasulullah calls a
intellectual peasant.
Yeah? You make a complete fool out of yourself, and you think that you have won the debate. I mean, you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Regardless, let's continue.
There are many different types of theories. Theories based on philosophy, based on logic, based on political philosophy, moral philosophy, right? There are many less than scientific theories.
And yet they are less. What are you talking about, my friend? What you said just now was... Take down your channel. What you said just now was... Wow. What did you just say? No. All theories are the same. They are not less than scientific theories. What are you talking about, my friend? Science is a methodological way to investigate the world reliably.
Yes, and logical theories, based on a sound argument, are also a methodological way to investigate the world reliably. So how does this make science special?
Theories are just theories. So what? Political theories. I have a political theory. Mary has another political theory. You have a political theory. Citizen X has a political theory. What are you talking about, my friend?
Einstein has a scientific theory. Newton has a scientific theory. Maximum Planck has a scientific theory. John Schwarz has a scientific theory. Many different scientists have different contradictory scientific theories. So how is this any different than a logical theory?
Okay, so let's make a sound argument for a political theory. Premise 1. Torturing someone is against human rights. Premise 2. The current Chinese government uses torture against the Uyghurs and other Chinese citizens. Conclusion. Therefore, the current Chinese government is against human rights. Now, based on this argument, I can have a very sound political theory, which says that current Chinese government is against human rights. Now, tell me, Mr. Socrates Son, how is this any less reliable than a scientific theory? Now, this is a challenge for you. I want you to show me that how scientific theories are actually better than this theory. Okay, that's your homework. Regardless, let's continue.
Especially because scientific theories, even with all this rigorous process, still can be proven false. Same way, a theory based on logic can also be proven false.
You say insanely dumb things because you watch people like Hamza Churches, Shopur Ahmed, you watch complete idiots and they have messed your mind. Your mind is a mess right now. Okay, so if we debate, you will focus in true arguments and maybe there is a hope for you, my friend. Look now what you said. Two theories are the same because both can be disproven in an absolute sense. In other words, the theory that the earth is flat is the same as the theory that the earth is round because both can be disproven in an absolute sense.
The idiot again misrepresents my argument. I already clarified that I'm comparing reliable and logical theories. I'm not making a comparison between reliable and unreliable theories.
Okay, so there are two different types of theories, right? So there are the reliable theories, then there are the unreliable theories. The reliable theories are theories that are based on logic. Now, it can be scientific theories or it could be simply philosophical theories or other type of theories. Yeah. The other one is unreliable theories. These are theories that we just say based on our gut feeling. Now, these theories are unreliable. I agree. Now, obviously, when I'm talking about scientific theories, I'm comparing the reliable theories. I'm not talking about unreliable theories. I'm talking about theories that are also based on logic. Okay? Logic and reasoning. What I'm saying is that a theory that is based on sound argument is as acceptable as a scientific theory.
What he did here is comparing a reliable theory based on sound argument to an unreliable theory that's not based on a sound argument. This is not my argument. My argument is logically reliable theories based on a sound argument are all the same. He again strawmanned my argument. He is committing the faulty comparison fallacy.
I mean, we know that the earth is round. We have taken pictures from space, like we have footage from space. Regardless, let's continue.
Science does not work without logic. What do I mean by that? When it comes to scientists, they don't just find the data and then just come to a conclusion. It doesn't work like that. They have to interpret the data, and how they interpret the data, they use logic, they use philosophy.
My friend, there is a reason you trust a doctor and not a philosopher when you are sick. There is a reason you trust a pilot and not a philosopher when you want to travel. Science just needs basic logic, a conscious being. Philosophy, on the other hand, needs facts. Without facts, philosophy is useless. Philosophy investigates logical consistency, not truth.
Again, this guy again proves to be a complete uneducated fool. He again changed the definition of science. Trusting doctors and engineers have nothing to do with scientific theories. Okay, the way I described scientific theories is the way Royal Institution described scientific theories. It has nothing to do with knowledge and skills. Also, philosophy doesn't investigate truth. Here, just Google the word philosophy on Google and let's see what comes up. Now let's read the definition of philosophy according to Google. The study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline. Philosophy is literally the study of reality. Now again, this is a very basic definition of philosophy, but still, even someone as uneducated as you should be able to Google this. Regardless, let's continue.
You clearly, in a desperate attempt to try to refute me, you're like, what are you doing? But what is that supposed to prove? Did I ever say this scientific theory is the same as a crackpot theory or conspiracy theories? No, I didn't. Okay. Okay, so this idiot does not understand my argument. Okay, so Royal Institution is saying that scientific theories are not the same as theories, in everyday sense of the word. Okay, that's the position. Why did I object to this? I objected to this because that's not true.
You literally just said that a scientific theory is just like any other theory. You literally just said that. Please continue.
Okay, so in this portion of the video, he again lies about me. So again, notice how he claimed that I'm saying scientific theories are the same as a crackpot theory or conspiracy theory. Then when I say that I never said that, he completely takes something I said out of context, where I said
Royal Institution is saying that scientific theories are not the same as theories, in everyday sense of the word. Okay, that's the position. Why did I object to this? I objected to this because that's not true.
Here I meant that they are the same as other theories as long as they are based on logic. That's what I meant. Here I'm talking about theories that are based on logic, not theories that are unreliable or illogical, like a conspiracy theory or a crackpot theory. I again have never said scientific theories based on logic is the same as other theories that are not based on logic, or like a conspiracy theory. As a matter of fact, I even clarified this in the same video.
Are they based on logic or not? That's it, that's what I'm saying. So, okay, so there are two different types of theories, right? So there are the reliable theories, then there are the unreliable theories. The reliable theories are theories that are based on logic. Now, it can be scientific theories or it could be simply philosophical theories or other type of theories. Yeah. The other one is unreliable theories. These are theories that we just say based on our gut feeling, But these theories are unreliable. I agree. Now, obviously, when I'm talking about scientific theories, I'm comparing the reliable theories. I'm not talking about unreliable theories. I'm talking about theories that are also based on logic. Okay? Logic and reasoning. What I'm saying is that a theory that is based on sound argument is as acceptable as a scientific theory.
So as you guys can see, he completely lied about me in this video. So he did this before as well.
You lying to people.
So again, let this be a lesson to you guys. Don't misrepresent your opponent or lie about them. Okay, otherwise you will likely be humiliated, just like this guy is being humiliated right now. Regardless, let's continue.
Okay, let me make you a sound logical argument. We all know that a cat is larger than an elephant. A dog is larger than a cat, therefore, the dog is larger than an elephant. That's a sound argument. What's the problem with this argument? It's based on wrong assumptions. It's based on wrong premises.
If it's based on wrong premises, then how the hell is this a sound argument, you dumb freak?
Here he's committing the moving the goalpost fallacy. This idiot was just refuted in the video. He accused me of saying that scientific theories are the same as a crackpot theory. Then when he saw the footage where I said that I never said that scientific theories are the same as other crackpot theory,
he again doubles down and shows a footage completely out of context where I said Royal Institution's position is that scientific theories are more reliable than other theories. Why did I object to this? I objected because that's not true. He takes this quote and lies about me and says I'm saying scientific theories and crackpot theories are the same. However, again, this was a lie, because in the same video I clarified that I'm talking about reliable theories, not unreliable theories. Then when he sees this exact footage,
instead of admitting that, okay, you know what, I was wrong, he immediately instead changes his position and start talking about sound arguments. Dude, do you not realize that you just got refuted? I mean, how stupid do you have to be to not realize this? Again, this fool doesn't realize the difference between a sound and a valid argument. What he described is a valid argument, where the premises logically follows from to the conclusion. However, a valid argument is not accepted because an argument have to also be sound, where the premises must be true. This is what I meant when I say logic, a sound philosophical argument. In order for the argument to be sound, the premises must be true. You cannot have a sound argument with false premises.
Now then he says that how does the premise 1 and premise 3 contradict? Like, dude, are you blind? What does premise 1 say? According to Royal Institution, scientific theories are more than just theory because it has evidence, predictability, and because it is falsifiable. So basically what the Royal Institution is trying to say here is that because of these three categories, scientific theories are more than just theory. It has somehow higher status when it comes to logic or knowledge. However, I'm showing here that we have theories that had this so-called higher status, and yet they were wrong.
The fact that science doesn't deal with absolute truth places zero bearing to whether science is more reliable to any other theory based on logic. The same way, you showing that science can be wrong places zero bearing to the claim of the Royal Institution that scientific theories are more reliable than common theories. So in your argument, your conclusion is wrong. Premise 3 doesn't contradict premise 1. So you say, therefore, the statement made by the is proven false. No, it isn't. You have the wrong conclusion. The premise 3 doesn't contradict premise 1.
He again strawmans me. I never said science is not absolutely true. That's why it's not more reliable. What I'm saying again is both science and other logical theories can give you false conclusion. Which is why none of them are better than the other. Royal Institution tried to argue that evidence, predictability, and falsifiability makes scientific theories better. I showed that it doesn't make a difference, because in the end of the day it can still give you false conclusion. This is why it's not more reliable, because, in the end of the day, they can both give you false conclusion, based on the same problems. This is my argument, so please stop strawmanning me. Also, he is committing the burden of proof fallacy. He already assumes that scientific theories are better without any evidence or justification. Also, how does it play zero bearing? If the reasons listed by Royal Institution are supposed to make scientific theories better, and we see that it makes no difference, then how are scientific theories better?
So when religion or philosophy gives you false conclusion, it's not reliable, but if science gives you false conclusion, then oh no, it is reliable. I mean, how is this consistent? Again, it doesn't matter how many processes it goes through or how careful the scientists are. What matters is the end result. And if the end result is false conclusion, then you cannot call it more reliable than other theories. Regardless, let's continue.
Let's take an analogy of a detective. Logic represents the reasoning process of the detective. Science represents his gathering the evidence.
Again, he's committing the false analogy fallacy. Science is not just gathering evidence. Again, when I say scientific theories, I mean theories that can make predictions about the unknown. A detective simply gathering evidence is not science. Regardless, let's continue.
Okay. Now, you say that if the detective has the murder weapon, the fingertips of the murderer, 3 witnesses, and DNA of the murderer, then he cannot reason that this is the murderer, because that presupposes reason.
Again, he is using a false analogy. His analogy does not represent either science or logic. If there are 3 witnesses who saw the murder and they have the murder weapon with them and they have the fingerprints of the murderer, then there's no need for logic at this point. There's also no need for science. I mean, you know who the murderer is.
Again, I say this because we only use science or logic when we want to know something, or when we want to be certain about something. In this analogy, the detective already knows who the murderer is through testimony, so there is no need to use either logic or science. This analogy only demonstrates knowledge via testimony. Unless you have reason to doubt the witnesses, this is a case closed, without any need for science or logic.
Where's the logic in that? I mean, where's the science in that? This is not science either, because there's nothing to predict here based on science. I mean, you know who the murderer is. Again, he changed the definition of science. He is now again saying knowledge is science, where before he said that investigation is science. So which one is it?
Scientific theories are based on logic and a rigorous investigation for facts. Common theories are just based on logic. Therefore, scientific theories are more reliable than common theories based on just logic.
Okay, so let me try and steelman his argument. Premise 1. Scientific theories are based on logic and rigorous investigation. Premise 2. Logical theories are only based on logic and not rigorous investigation. Conclusion, therefore, scientific theories are not reliable than other logical theories. Here he is committing the non sequitur fallacy. His second premise is false. Logical theories are also based on rigorous investigation, because in order to make a sound argument, you have to present true premises. You can only present true premises if you do your investigation and gather your evidence. Now, I know that he will probably try and strawman me by showing my clip of me saying just because science has more rigorous method doesn't mean it's somehow better. However, again, this will be a strawman, because when I say rigorous, I mean when it goes through more processes, not that it is more careful. What I mean here is, by going through more processes, is that scientific theories make predictions about the normal world or the natural world. This is the only thing that differentiates from a simple, reliable logical theory to a scientific theory. However, this is exactly the problem in the scientific method or the scientific theory from a philosophical point of view. The problem is the problem of induction. just because something is true in some cases doesn't necessarily mean it is true in all cases or many cases in the natural world. Imagine every day I go out in the world and I only see black ducks everywhere. Based on this, I conclude that in the world there are only black ducks. However, that would be a false conclusion, because it is also possible that there are somewhere out there in the world there's a white duck or ducks of other colors. This is known as the problem of induction. You cannot say what will be true based on what is true. Okay? This is the problem. This is a philosophical problem. It's mostly known as the problem of induction. And this is very similar to how scientific method works. And this is basically what the scientific method does. It takes data and logic from one scenario and then applies it to other areas. However, this does not logically follow, because just because something is true in one case or in certain cases doesn't necessarily mean it will be true in other cases as well. Other than that, reliable logical theories and scientific theories are basically the same thing. Then there is the academic journal and peer review. However, that also exists in philosophy and other academia. So again, it doesn't make science somehow special. Here, let me put this argument in logical form. Premise 1. The only thing that makes scientific theories different are the fact that it makes predictions about the natural world. Premise 2. We see that this process of making predictions is based on a non sequitur, therefore it is not logical. Conclusion. Therefore, we can conclude that scientific theories are the same as any other reliable logical theories, because the only thing that makes it different is not logical. However, based on this, someone could argue, well, if science has something that is not fully logical, then doesn't it follow that normal, reliable logical theories are actually better than scientific theories? My response to that would be that no. I mean, just because, look, scientists often have to deal with things that other logical theories oftentimes don't deal with. Some of these things are extremely complex, so sometimes they don't have a choice but to use a process that's not fully logical. However, that being said, it still sometimes gives you a good result, and it does sometimes lead to truth. This is why I would say that even though science is something that's not fully logical, it's still reliable. Regardless, let's continue.
Science is more reliable than logic because, firstly, science deals with reality, and reality defines what's true, not logic. Logic deals with logical consistency.
Again, logic also deals with reality, so it doesn't make science somehow special. Also, how can reality define truth when you have to use logic to understand what reality is? Again, you cannot understand reality without logic. So how is this a point against logic?
Secondly, science most often just needs basic logic. In contrast, logic is useless without facts.
Also, again, logic does not just deal with logical consistency, it also deals with reality. Again, philosophy literally means the study of reality. Again, if logic doesn't use facts, then it's not logical. It's not sound. I mean, seriously, go to a philosophy class or in a university, or type in, I don't know, like sound arguments. I mean, you may learn something.
3. Science being a systematic method, self-correcting method that gets feedback from reality, can override human limitations in reasoning.
Again, logic, this also applies to logic. Logic is also systematic. It's a systematic method and a self-correcting method that gets feedback from reality. Again, to make a sound argument, you have to use true premises. And you can only do that if you do your investigation and self-correction and get feedback from reality. This does not make science somehow special. With that, I'm done with this video. I don't plan on making that many responses to this guy, but seeing how bad his first response was, I don't have much hope for this guy. If he does make a response, I might make one last response, and then I'm probably gonna end this. Either way, thank you guys for watching, and this was a nightmare to watch. This guy is he's extremely bad. I mean, his pronunciation is bad, his presentation is bad, his arguments are bad. There's nothing good about him. At least with Armin Navabi, I could tolerate him, even though he was a piece of shit. I could still somehow tolerate it. This guy is bad at everything, and still somehow thinks he's the smartest guy in the world, and that just pisses me off. I mean, okay, fine, no problem. It's one thing that you're stupid, but why are you claiming that you're smarter than everyone else? Anyway, so again, I'm done with this video. Thank you guys for watching. Again, if you guys like my content, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you like the video, then like, share, and subscribe. And again, inshallah, I'll see you guys in the next time. Thank you guys for watching. Jazakallah khair. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.